I feel quite humble but quite honoured to be speaking today because there's some people here that have far more experience than I do. I'm also not a Montessori, so there's also a lot of people here that know far more about Montessori and about what Maria Montessori and her work and what she did than me. But I want to tell you a little bit about our journey. I'll start off by telling you a little bit about myself. But the first thing I want to do, I might be going too quickly. The first thing I want to do, because Maria Montessori said we need to learn with our hands, we need to learn by doing. So I want you all to take out your mobile phones. Our school has a lot of buses. 16 buses in the morning bring our children to school. Sometimes the behaviour on our buses is not as good as it should be. And occasionally I need to speak to the children about their behaviour on the bus. At the start of the year this year, a student came to me and the student said, there are a lot of children using bad language on the bus. And I said, what do you think we should do about that? How are we going to solve that? I was expecting the children to ask me to come and tell the children off for using bad language. So the student said, we should use Mentimeter. I'd never heard of Mentimeter. So Mentimeter is a way that you can crowdsource words. And the student said, how about we get the children to type in the worst swear words that are being said on the bus, and we'll quickly get a picture of what is the worst swear word that's being said on the bus. And then we can talk to everyone about that word. So I thought that I'd like to try and do something interactive with you rather than just talking with you for 90 minutes. If you can go to this website on your phone, and you can put in this code at the end. You will be prompted to give 3 words. So I'd like you to give me 3 words that you think represents the adolescent. When you submit your words, we'll start to see your words coming up on here. So far, nobody has submitted any words. I would think that Chinese characters will work as well. We'll have to see. Good job, good. So as we keep contributing to this the words that are most often used will start to get bigger and bigger. And perhaps we can come back to this during my talk when I'm stuck for things to say. We can have a look. You'll find 3 other questionnaires after this. What most concerns you about starting a new program? I have chosen a number of characteristics of a Montessori adolescent program, and during the day you can rate which ones you think are the most important to the least important. Let's see what we think. And finally, you can ask me anything. So if we get to the end of the 90 minutes and there's a question that I haven't answered, you can put it up here and we'll be able to have a look. So that was my go at taking a risk and learning from my children, learning from my students, because I'd never seen this before. I hope the message that you take from that is that it doesn't matter where we are in our journey or where we are in our experience, but I think there's always something that we can learn from, especially from our students. I was a very troubled child. I was expelled from school. My mother passed away when I was about 12 years old. My father sent me to a school. He sent me to a school up in the hills in Victoria, in Australia, where I'm from. It wasn't called a Montessori school, but at that school, I had to work on the farm. I had to chop wood to keep the boiler going that would heat the showers. I lived in a community of 16 other boys. We ate our meals together. We took small academic classes in small classes that were spread across the campus. But we spent a lot of time working with farmers, working with local business owners. We had a vineyard, we tended it. We had vegetable gardens, we tended those. What does that sound like? I think it sounds like Maria Montessori's vision of her Erdkinder. And whoever set up that school may not have known, they may have known, but that school made me who I am today and meant that I could go on and live a productive life. So I think back on that now, and it has an impact on the way I work with children and what I think education should be for our children. I came to the International Montessori School about 7 years ago. We were in Hong Kong. As I said, I had no Montessori background. I happened to meet the founders of the school when I was in Hong Kong, and they said that they'd like to see if we could work together. I was a bit surprised, but the school was going through a huge growth, becoming a much larger international school. So in the last 7 years, I've learned a lot about what Maria Montessori said, and I've learned a lot from many colleagues, many of whom you know. But every day I realize more and more, I think, that what Maria Montessori was doing 100 years ago is just best practice, and we are struggling in the real education world, not the real education world, but traditional education world, to find our way back. In a way, she was ahead of her time, and still is ahead of her time. So today I'm going to go through these aspects of our school. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our history. I'm going to show you where we are now. I'm going to talk a bit about our journey of deciding why an adolescent program was needed. And then I'll take you through the steps of how we've begun our planning. I'll talk a little bit about our admissions. And finally, hopefully, I'll time this well and we'll get to the impact that this has had on our school. Because at this moment, we don't have an adolescent program yet. I'll explain about that as well. IMS was established by a group of parents in Hong Kong in September 2002 with only 68 children. It was a group of passionate parents who wanted an authentic Montessori program in Hong Kong. There wasn't one at the time. But also what was extremely important to the program was a very strong dual language, classroom dual language environment. It was felt that the Montessori approach to learning language was very, very effective at helping children to become bilingual. We believe that we're very authentic to Montessori principles. We're the only accredited school in Greater China, elementary program. We have a large Montessori elementary program with a registered charity in Hong Kong. This was the very first classroom. This teacher here is still with us. This was our first staff. Our two founders are in the centre, Miss Anne Sawyer and Miss Karen Ann. There'll be some people in here that will recognise some other faces in this photo, but a number of these people are still in our organisation and hold leadership roles in our organisation. Miss Teresa Sai, who's second from my left-hand side, your right-hand side, is soon to become the first AMI trainer of trainers who speaks Chinese and English. So she's the head of our elementary program. Wonderful lady. She knows far more about Montessori than I do. This is our staff last year. This is our last year staff photo. It's just a big event when we get together for staff photo. We're now spread over 4 campuses in Hong Kong. We have over 1,000 students. We have 3 distinct Montessori environments, from our toddler 2 to 3 environment to our 18 Casa Bambini classes. The Casa Bambini classes are spread across our campuses. So we have 6 in one campus, 6 in another, then 3, and then 3. All the Casa Bambini classes feed into the elementary program, which is at Stanley. That's our Stanley campus on the south side of Hong Kong. So I'm the principal and head of the school at the Stanley campus. I have around 420 elementary students, and then about another 200 Bambini students at Stanley. In the last 3 years, 2017, 2018, 2019, we've added upper elementary classes. So hopefully you can see that our focus over the last 5 to 6 years has been to encourage more and more of our families to choose Montessori for life, or as far as we can offer. I think what it also recognises is that more and more families in Hong Kong are seeing Montessori as a viable elementary program. And I'll tell you a little bit about the challenges of schooling in Hong Kong in a minute. We received IMC accreditation in 2012, and we run a joint international conference every second year in partnership with IMC, International Montessori Centre. I want to show you a short video that is going to give you a small insight into the life of our lower elementary classes in the Stanley campus. Just bear with me on this. I need to switch to another window. We're extremely lucky in Hong Kong to have such a wonderful campus. Often, I know our teachers first come to us and they feel our rooms are small, but I think you make do with what you have, and that's a really good message if you're looking at setting up a program or if you're looking at developing your school any further. I don't think there's any one formula or any one plan for the perfect school, or the perfect Montessori school. So these are our 4 campuses. Our Horizons is on the south of Hong Kong in a place called Apple Chow. It runs toddler program and 6 Casa Bambini. Our Mid-Levels campus has 3 Casa Bambini and 3 toddler programs. It's on the city side of Hong Kong, if you know Hong Kong. Also on the city side is our Aldrich Bay, and it's our newest campus. We went through a rather traumatic period with our elementary program a number of years ago, where we couldn't renew our lease, and so we had to merge all of our elementary into the Stanley campus at the end. But the Aldrich Bay campus was our small Casa Bambini group, 3 classes that had been in the campus that we had to close. So I'm sure there'll be people here today that will talk to you about the challenges of merging and the challenges of redeveloping the culture, but we went through a very steep learning curve when we had to do that. This just shows you where our 4 campuses are. One thing about Hong Kong is that while it's incredibly small, the population is condensed into very small areas. So it leaves large areas of national park. This is a wonderful asset for our programs. We recently revisited our school's vision with a management company because we wanted to be really clear to our community about what we do and what we don't do. I think that's really important for anyone who's here today, is to be very, very clear about what you're going to do and why. We came up with 3 pillars, 3 key pillars that held our school together. One is authentic Montessori. So we hold the 3-hour work cycle as sacred. That proves to be a huge challenge when you get to a school the size that we are. How do you get 450 students through a 3-hour work cycle and still have them on the playground, still have them in the garden, still have them go to the art room? But it's a key pillar. So what this exercise did for us by establishing these 3 pillars is helped us with decision making. Because every time something comes along, every decision that you need to make about your school, if you have a lens to put that decision through, it helps you make your decision. So for example, our Stanley campus is now located in a very strong expat community. There are a lot of French families there. One day some parents came to me and they said, I think we should have French in our school. Can you teach French? Got all these French people, be really lovely. I said, yes, it would be lovely, but our second key pillar is that we have the highest quality dual language and immersion Chinese program. If not in Hong Kong, in the world. We would love to say that. So when you put that decision through that lens, French doesn't fit. It's not what we do. I'm sorry. It's not what we do. When a parent comes and says, I want my child to have more homework. I need them to do more homework at night because I've hired a tutor. Can you send home more homework? No. It's not what we do. So being very, very clear about the pillars that hold your school together, or the vision of your school, was a very important thing for us to do and to revisit. Our third pillar has become our status as an international school. We are a truly international school in Hong Kong. And so this allows us to do a number of great things. We have a dedicated single subject program. So we offer art, music, PE, IT, outdoor education. How do we balance this with our authentic Montessori? How do we help our single subject teachers to plan and to develop curriculum programs that integrate in our classroom practice? But it is as equally important part of our school as our dual language Chinese and as our authentic Montessori. Now sometimes these pillars, they conflict. I'm not saying that they are in perfect harmony. Sometimes something's going to interrupt your 3-hour work cycle. Sometimes you can't do something in the way that the Chinese faculty would like to do it. Sometimes the single subjects have to be sacrificed for our authentic Montessori. This is a delicate, very delicate balance. One we have to work with all the time. We have a small ability to cater for students with special educational needs and English second language. So we do take children with very little English who come into our school. We provide them with a learning support for a certain amount of time each week in order to help them maintain a full classroom program. We have a total staff of over 180, and our teaching staff is over 100. 66 of those staff are AMI trained from one corner of the globe or another. We keep pinching people's teachers from here. But we also have 11 teachers in training. So one of our challenges quite early on was how do we maintain recruitment for a school this size? And so we have quite an extensive program of employing good people, whether they're AMI trained or not, and then sponsoring their training. I don't think I'm the most qualified person in the room to take you through this slide. But I think it's good to revisit. Just to think about where the adolescent program fits. Our early years children are sponges. They're egotistical sponges. They learn by themselves, they practice, they experiment, they want to do things by themselves. They soak up everything around them. Which is why our environments recognize this. It's sensorial, it's self-correcting, it's attractive, it allows for freedom of movement and freedom of through responsibility. When our children move into the reasoning mind, they want to know how and why. Help me think. They're interested in everything. They want to become a part of a community. Suddenly they realize there's more than just themselves. But the reason we're here today, or the reason I'm talking, is because of the Adolescent program. And my story at the start, I hope, highlights the critical importance of this age group. The critical importance of the adolescent when they leave upper elementary. This is so often an age where children can be turned off education and hate it, or they can suddenly become lifelong learners. And much of that is about the relationships at that age that they are going to build with their teachers. So we looked at this age group, and our parents kept talking to us about this age group, and we started to think, what can we do? What can we add to our current school that is going to enhance or meet a need for our community? So about 3 years ago, the seed was sown, and we started to think about what an adolescent program at IMS might look like. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a background of what education in Hong Kong is like. It's probably not far removed from education in Singapore. It has some of the best secondary schools in the world. That's unquestioned. There are schools in Hong Kong that are very old and have very, very good reputations. Big international schools. And currently, at the moment, we have a very good process of our children graduating into these schools. So our upper elementary children, our 12-year-olds and our 11-year-olds, will graduate into these schools. Some of them are fiercely passionate about Chinese dual language as we are. So some of our families choose those schools. Some of them run British curriculum. Some of them run American curriculum. Our first question to answer was why? Why should we do something that could potentially be a problem? I have a very good relationship with all the principals of these schools. And when they heard we were setting up a middle school, I got a phone call from one of them. He said, "What's this I hear about you starting a middle school?" Because these schools love our children. They love Montessori children. Many of them run the IB program. And they know that Montessori children come into their programs and they are resilient, problem solvers, they're creative. They know how to fail and get back up again. They're confident. And they know how to collaborate. They know how to work with each other. They have a love for each other. These are consistently the things that we hear from our secondary schools that we feed our children. So our parents in Hong Kong have a lot of questions to ask. And we have to do a lot of work helping them when it comes to this transition point in our children's lives. Where are they going to go? These are just some of the aspects confronting a parent in Hong Kong when they leave us. What size of school do they want? Do they have a religious affiliation? Do they offer co-curricular activities that child may want? Can they continue their Chinese language? But what we started to find out, what continually dropped out from our conversations with our parents, is, will my child be happy? And more our parents became brave and they became strong, and they started to say to us, my child is so happy in Montessori, I don't want that to change. So please, please, can you develop a middle school? I have another video I need to play. Can I get your help? Thank you.
Kids today will experience a very different future from the one we experienced when we graduated from school. Did you know that by the time your middle schoolers graduate, the top 10 jobs will not have existed?
My apologies, the format for that video isn't able to play. What we started to do is we started to form a vision, and I would encourage all of you that this is the first step for you if you're thinking of starting a new program. What's the vision for your middle school going to look like? But we started with trying to understand what 21st century education needed to look like. I'll do my best to get this video to you so we can watch it before the end, because I'm not going to do as good a job explaining. Schools all over the world are facing the same problem. The problem is, how do we educate children for a future we don't know what it will look like? How do we educate children so that we know that they're going to be successful and have careers? When today, and I'm sure other people will talk about this, today we have more graduates leaving university, and yet we have less people getting jobs. So the traditional model that's working, or has worked so long in Hong Kong, a traditional model of education of extremely high, rigorous academic standards, that lead children on a pathway to prestigious universities, is not a guarantee of a success. It's not a guarantee of a successful future. So this video goes through some exploration of what skills children are no longer needing and what skills children are going to need. And unfortunately, we can't sit children in front of a standardized test to measure their creativity or measure their resilience or measure their ability to collaborate with others. So this became a focal point of what we wanted to do, or what we wanted to find out before we even committed to starting an adolescent program. So the first thing that we did was we formed a small leadership team in the school. And we wanted to do some research. We had been told by some very, very wise Montessorians that the first thing you do is you ask what Maria Montessori would say or what she wrote about whatever it is that you're asking yourself. So our planning team, our leadership team, started with two different visions. What has Maria Montessori said? And what do we know? What does best educational practice and pedagogy say about 21st century learning? So we started a bit of a headhunt. We started a manhunt. Or a woman hunt. We didn't mind. We wanted to find somebody who we felt had the passion for this project. And that's a theme I think that I'll come back to when I talk about recruitment. We didn't start off by scanning the world for the person with the longest history of setting up adolescent programs. We didn't go and kidnap David Cohen. We could have, yes. We decided that we had to feel something. We had to feel something in the people that we brought on board that connected with our school. And that would be a very, very important piece of advice that I would give everyone. The person with the highest credentials or the most experience is not always the person you want. So I happen to know a gentleman called Kyle Wagner. He's up there on the right-hand side. I knew him we worked together in Suzhou. And he came from a project-based learning university education system in San Diego. Since I had worked with him, he went to Beijing International School and he set up their Futures Academy. The International School of Beijing Futures Academy. Doesn't have Montessori anywhere in the title. But if you have a look at what they do, they immerse children in projects, real work. They run a small community-based program. Children have freedom through responsibility. And initially, at the beginning, that program was seen as alternative. Beijing International School is a huge international school. And I think some of you will face this challenge, that your programs are seen as alternative. In the first year, the Beijing Futures Academy started with a small handful of students. Can anyone guess what happened in the second year? The program exploded because the parents were knocking on the door saying, we want our children to be educated like that. We don't want our children educated anymore in the traditional topic-based, rote, standardized testing manner. So the program exploded. We were lucky enough that Kyle had moved into educational consulting, and we employed him to come and work with us. So that formed the core of our planning team. The next thing that we started to do was we started to research and visit and talk to people. We've been to some of the wonderful programs that are run by the people who are going to talk to that this weekend. But as a leadership group, we spanned all these countries and we visited all their programs. I started listing them individually, but there was too many to fit on this slide. So, if you have the means, the second thing I would encourage you to do is go and have a look what other people are doing. It's a great way to get some travel paid for by somebody else. Unless you're the founder or you're the owner, or. But it's a great experience. Because you will find visions of an adolescent program that you had never even thought of. These are just some of the people we spoke to. And I'm not selling or advocating on their behalf, I promise. But we spoke to David, we spoke to Tim Selden from IMC. We went to visit some people's schools and spoke to some people that are here. We consulted with Paul Epstein, who runs a very successful middle school MYP program. We went and visited Matt and Nancy, and we listened to what they had to say. I highly encourage you to do the same. A characteristic of the Montessori world is that people are very giving. People are very ready to share their experience and are very ready to help you on your way. I've never come across anybody who said, no, you can't have that. Or you can do that, but you've got to give me the credit for doing it. And I think that this is true to Maria Montessori's legacy. The next thing that I encourage you to do is to be very strategic. Try and build a roadmap. Try and build a timeline of where you are. Start by being very clear about where you are and where you want to get to. But give yourself the kindness to be realistic about what it's going to take. As I said, we're 3 years into our journey, and we still do not have a single middle school child. Establish your parents' vision of the adolescent. Once you've established your vision of what the school wants the adolescent program to be sure to engage your parents. Our parents had a feeling that they knew what their vision was, but the work that we did talking with them and working with them to establish their vision helped give them the confidence to commit to us. Be realistic about your goals and your dreams. We were never going to have farm animals in Hong Kong. We've got bearded dragons, we've got tortoises, we've got a fish breeding program, we've got a bad problem with wild pigs in the area, but we've got no farm animals. I have a very good friend in Australia who's a beekeeper. I was chatting to him one day about the work we were doing with our middle school program, and I was talking to him about the Erdkinder and this amazing vision. And he said, every adolescent program should keep bees. And I floated that idea with my founders, and I was quickly shut down. Very quickly. I know. But if anyone wants any beekeeper training, I can provide you a good name. We began running some forums. We invited children to that forum, our students. We invited parents to that forum. We tried to do a lot of education about what we had learned, about what Maria Montessori said, but we also tried to do a lot of education with our parents around what their children are going to need to be a 21st century learner, to be successful in the 21st century. But the most powerful work we did was talking to the students about what they wanted. In the end, these become your stakeholders. And if you start to come across challenges around registration and licensing and department regulations, these will be the people that will fight your fight for you. So what was interesting is this is what we found out from our parents. We found out their main hopes and their main fears. We thought this was extremely important for us to clarify, to make sure we weren't going off on a path that wasn't meeting their need. The number one hope reflected the number one fear. We want to maintain our authentic Montessori model. We don't want to lose what it is that makes us authentic Montessori. The second hope, the second fear, again, is mirrored. They wanted to make sure that our teachers are highly qualified. The third hope and the third fear, again, are mirrored. But that our language acquisition model, our dual language, Chinese, English program remains. Our parents were still concerned, as they currently are, about how their Montessori child is going to transition into secondary schools in Hong Kong. Something I think that affects any small program or any developing program is parents were concerned about, are they going to have enough peers to socialize with? Are they going to have friends? So it's important to clarify and be very clear about these things. So from the work that we did speaking to all our stakeholders, we formed this vision. The Ims Middle School is a small, innovative learning community that uses Montessori inquiry-driven, project-based experiences to help students be self-directed and thoughtful contributors to their local and global communities. One of the reasons that Kyle Wagner decided to join us is he came and he spent some days watching our elementary classrooms, and the first observation he made was Montessori is best practice. Montessori is a reflection of what IB is trying to do, a reflection of progressive curriculum systems in New Zealand and Australia. These are the ones I'm familiar with. But this idea that learning should be student-centered, should be inquiry-based, should allow for independence, and is built around this relationship with a community, or a relationship with connections to your community. These are present in all education models now that we're pursuing. But Maria Montessori was 100 years ahead of her time. We know that. No doubt you have all these questions in mind. You're looking at planning a new program. If you've done it, I've probably missed areas. But our first concern was, where do we do this? Because this one didn't fit real well with this one. But what we found was that was an oversimplification. And I would encourage you to be very, very open-minded to what assets are available in your own communities or your own locations. Hong Kong is not just this. Any of you who have travelled there will know that there are some beautiful, beautiful open nature parks in Hong Kong. So when you're thinking about your location and your facilities, don't ever think that because you can't have what somebody else has, you can't have what Chris has, or you can't have what Pippa has. Don't ever think that that means you can't do it. It's a matter of making what you have work through the lens of what we know we want. So we're extremely lucky. We have a very large campus. This is a floor plan of the bottom floor of our Stanley campus. And it was an administrative wing. So we had offices. So we started a design process based on the characteristics that we had seen when we'd been to all these different adolescent programs. We knew we needed it to be open plan and flexible. We knew we wanted small seminar rooms, breakout rooms, where small groups of students could work with teachers on abstract learning. We knew that it had to have, all the programs we went to had the feeling of being a home. They had the feeling that children were not in a school, but were in a place they loved. So we designed a kitchen, and it doesn't have to be a kitchen, but our thought around the kitchen was our children are starting to become young adolescents. They want their own space. They want a cafe. They want an internet cafe. They want a lounge. So we went through this design process with our children And can anyone guess what the number one item that our children wanted in their adolescent program? The answer there was toaster maker. Very close. Anyone else? It was a smoothie machine. It was a smoothie machine. So our architects were very disappointed when they laid this wonderful plan out in front of the students. And Jonathan says, "Where's the smoothie machine?" So I think the takeaway also from this is I can throw up wonderful, this is a 3D representation of the space. I can throw up wonderful plans of facilities that will cost you a lot of money. But in the end, what do the students need and want? What they need and want is all the things that you have learned from the programs you visited and what Maria Montessori has said around real work, relationships, independence, smoothie machines and toaster makers. They don't care if it doesn't look like a shopping mall, all fancy and shiny. We identified two key areas of our school that we had to develop to fit our middle school in, our adolescent program in. This is the first, and it was to be the predominant area that the middle school would occupy. The second area that we developed, and we called it a science lab and maker bay space. A maker bay, if you don't know, I'm sorry if you do, but a maker bay is a very in word these days, very trendy word for children doing things with hammers and wood and nails and pulling things apart and putting them back together. Bike shops. You might add a 3D printer today. But this idea that you need a space in your school where students can build things and bash things and blow things up and dissect things. As soon as you sell that vision to your students, they're in. So this is an area that was developed 2 summers ago. So we have this facility now. And I will talk later about how it's impacted on our elementary program. It's split into 2 areas. A fully functional science lab and a maker bay space. But once again, I want to stress that the facilities are nothing unless you have the approach and the pedagogy that is going to make it real. What are your children going to be doing? Are they solving real problems? Is this real work? Do you have connections with your community to use these facilities? Are you going to be able to allow your children to make mistakes and to go off on different pathways in your beautiful facilities and not direct them exactly the way you want them to go and make your program exactly the way you think it should be? So this is a slide of the original space when it was handed over to us from the architects. This is a photo taken recently. These are all elementary students. These are not middle school students. The second area I think you have to consider, or that we started to consider, was our staffing, our team. How do you put together a team of people who can deliver what you need to be able to deliver to your adolescent program? And where are you going to find these people? So we did a number of things. First of all, we reached out to our networks. We did actually go to some recruitment fairs. Because the problem with the adolescent Montessori teacher is they're very, very rare. So the chances are you're going to have to find the right people with the right backgrounds or subject matter experience, and then you may have to work on training, or you might have to find somebody who is an elementary Montessorian who is ready to take a risk and to move into your adolescent program. But here is some advice that I think served us well. Maria talks about the Renaissance man. Look for your Renaissance men and women. Look for people who have a well-rounded profile. Your maths teacher is going to be hopeless if they have a PhD in maths, but they're not willing to get down and play the guitar with the kids, or dig up a vegetable patch with the kids, or bake some muffins with the kids. So we went out looking for, we actually developed a staff profile. I can share it with you. It's a PDF that we gave to potential people who wanted to work with us. And when you start talking about a program like this, people will want to work with you. So be very clear about what you're doing and what your program is going to look like. If your budgets allow it, I would encourage to recruit as early as possible. We've had Kyle on board for 2 years. We've had 2 other teachers on board. I'll introduce them to you in a minute, Natalie and Fraser. We've had them on board 1 year. Natalie is our maths and science teacher, and Fraser is our humanities teacher. The value of having those people within our organisation on our elementary has been profound. Sometimes it's been surprising, but when the kids found a dead rat underneath our composters, and Miss Natalie decided to bring it inside so that they could dissect it, I was a bit worried, but it was still a good outcome. You're going to have to grapple with this Montessori versus non-Montessori. And I don't think it's as simple as that. I've met Montessorians that I wouldn't start a middle school with. And I've met teachers who have no Montessori training who I think, you are the person I want. So I think it's a very, very complex issue. And my advice would be, people will speak to your heart. Especially adolescent teachers. Secondary teachers often only want to teach young adults. A middle school teacher is a very unique being. So be very, very watchful, be very careful about that. I could not teach in a toddler environment. Couldn't do it. I'm very, very at home with the drama and the passion of a 12 or a 13-year-old. Some people are not. Look at who's already in your school. You may have a wonderful CASA teacher who you find out has a biology degree. We had a CASA teacher that came to us and said, I'm really interested in this middle school. So look at who you've got. Look at who you've got in your current organisation. I'm going to need to hurry up. This is Miss Natalie, Miss Kyle, Mr. Fraser. We also needed a Chinese component to our team. We wanted our dual language Chinese to continue. This is going to be a challenge for you in your languages. Can you deliver a second language at language acquisition level, second language level? We also have to deliver Chinese at native tongue, mother tongue level. The majority of our children are going into the IB, so they need to do language A or language B, or even 2 language A's. These are some references to the training that we pursued. Again, they're here for your reference. I'm not selling any of them, or I'm not saying that any of them are better than any others. But what we were able to do was we were able to send our team to a number of different trainings. We attended the Adolescent AMI Introduction to Adolescent Studies at Hershey, in Chicago, and in Redlands. Mr. Fraser, our history and IT teacher, was a single subject teacher in our school. No Montessori background. He went to the Hershey farm. He came back changed. He talks about the experience like a religious awakening. So we got a lot of benefit from sending our people to a variety of different trainings. We also had staff complete the online CGMS and do some training. These are your components. You know about these. You know about the pursuit of the abstract. You know about meaningful work, independence and belonging, self-expression, and interdisciplinary experiences. These are what Maria wrote about. These form the nucleus of our program. So when we started planning our curriculum, we started with these in mind. Students need theoretical knowledge and practical experience that make the individual a part of a civilization. You're going to need to deal with this challenge with your parents. I love the fact that the kids are looking after animals all day. I love the fact that the kids are growing vegetables. But when are they doing their maths? So you need to be able to have answers here and plan. We know the value of meaningful work all through our programs, from our Casa Bambini through to our Adolescent. We started a program 3 or 4 years ago called CAS, the Activity Action Service. We pinched it from the IB. But it came about because we wanted to try and solidify what going out and meaningful work meant. CAS gave us a great framework. The feedback we also were getting from our secondary schools was children come into MYP programs, they come into the IB, and they have no skills to complete CAS. They don't have these wonderful experiences and skills that Montessori kids have in planning projects, in choosing and grappling with a problem, wanting to make a difference. Can I show another video? Hopefully this one works.
Our students are taking up projects that do the same thing. Wilfred, a 10-year-old, connected with an organization over in Guyana to help solve the issue of high drowning rates.
Well, I first heard about the project when we were finishing up swim class, and in the box there were some goggles, hats, swimsuits and stuff, and we were like, why is it in there? What are we supposed to do about it? And then suddenly we saw a poster that said it was being donated to the kids of Guyana, and if you had any spare stuff, just freely put it there. And I got really curious about it, and I just wanted to see what would really happen. What are we going to do about it? Well, what I did was that I first gathered information by interviewing the NECA, because back then I knew a very small deal about what she was doing, what the project was about. So after I interviewed, I started going to IMS and other international schools, putting boxes there and asking them if they could donate other stuff. And after that, I decided that we could also, develop it more. So during the swim meet, we knew that lots of people would come, 100, 200 people. Lots of swim clubs would come. There would be lots of fun and excitement. So we thought that we could have this table where we would just put up posters and boxes where other clubs, if they were interested, could donate. So far, the project was successful because we got around 100 to 200 swim gear, and we also received the sponsorship from a company, and everything went really smooth. Everyone was excited. Everyone helped. Everyone was supportive. Everyone they just seemed that they really were, like, the emotion they had on this project was really genuine and that they really wanted to help. So I think because of that, that's why the project has went so well.
Just an amazing example, I think, of real work. Something we didn't plan, something that was initiated by the students themselves. Something that makes a difference. I'm going to speed up a little bit, otherwise I'm going to run out of time. Adolescent children need self-expression. They need to be deeply involved in the arts and design, and music, poetry, because they're at a passionate age where they will go through extreme highs of motivation and passion and extreme lows. Their interest doesn't last very long on any one thing. So you have to capture that interest when it's there. We knew it had to be an interdisciplinary curriculum. We knew it had to link our subjects with real-world experience, with the community through our going out, and also allow for children to be able to have the independence that they require. I'll come back to that one if we have time. Adolescents yearn for independence, but yearn even more for a sense of belonging in the community. Everything is about their friends. They'll sign up for a sport or activity because of their friends. Help me do it, I'll learn. Make me feel secure enough that you love me, I can make mistakes, but let me do it on my own. I think the message I might focus on for your curriculum is be clear about where your curriculum leads. You have to answer that for your parents. If you're not going to go through to 18 years old, grade 12, year 13, whatever you call it, if you're not going to go through to that age, what schools are you feeding your children into? Or if you are going to go all the way through, what can you offer? And you may have to start with your local regulations. If you have government obligations, your children might need to sit a high school certificate that is mandatory in your location. But for us, and most of the international school world, children are either going down the IB path, they're going to go down the path of the AP exams, American AP exams, or they're going to go into a British system and do IGCSEs and into A levels. One exercise I would highly encourage your team to do when you start to plan your curriculum is backwards planning. Find out what your standards are for entry into these so that you have your answers for your parents in regards to what their children are going to, what hurdles their children need to get through. So we designed our own model of what our elementary program was going to be. We started with our vision that I've shared with you. It was going to be comprised of authentic projects, real projects that are connected with real work. Economic independence. You give children a business, they will learn and they will thrive. You allow them to develop a business, they will thrive. This is what Maria Montessori is so passionate about, talked about in the Erdkinder. We have a number of businesses running in our school, even at elementary level. We have a group of students that now have a Google online form and teachers order coffee and tea and biscuits, and they deliver it to their room. I love that the students have pushed it online. That's real integration of technology. That's not sticking an iPad in front of every child in your classroom or a laptop in front of every child in your classroom. We have another business in our school that composts and then sells compost back to our local community. This group have taken out a loan from the school because the composters that they first bought under their first budget, too small, so they filled them very quickly. So they came back to me with a business proposal, they applied for a loan, I loaned them money, they bought bigger composters. And so they're learning about economic interdependence. If you have time after question and answers, I'll show you a video of their project. You've got to get the relationships right for the adolescent. There's a wonderful video on TED. It's called Every Child Needs a Champion. I'm sure many of you have used it. But there's a line in that video that lady talks about, and she says, children don't learn from people they don't like. And that was in response to a teacher saying to her, my job's to teach, the children's job's to learn. They come in, I teach, they learn, job done. The relationships that your middle school teachers form with those students, I would suggest is the key aspect of an effective program. That'll make or break your program. I guarantee a question you're going to have to grapple with your parents is, how do you know? Tell me they're learning. Their children will do amazing things like Wilfred. Their children will build solar-powered vehicles. Their children will implement recycling programs in their community. But you're still going to have a parent coming in saying, I want to know what maths level my child is at. So I think my view on this is that my role as the head of the school is to protect and to help my teachers do what they do. My role is to take care of this and be the focal point for helping parents understand that we know our children learn. We know that what we're doing is working. So you're going to have to align to some standards, I would say. You may have state standards, national standards. You're going to have to align to some. There are a list of the standards we have chosen to work with. They don't have to be the standards you work with. But what I might just point out is we've been using now for about 6 years 2 forms of standardized testing. I know it's a dirty word. Do you remember right back at the start I said we have these pillars and they often conflict? And you have to look at your school through those lenses. So we have chosen these 2 standardized tests because we believe that they give us the data that we need in the way that sits with our Montessori pedagogy in the rest of our schools. It's a compromise. ISA is International School Assessment. You can do it from grade 3 to grade 10. We still do the written form because our parents have got this thing about their children sitting at little desks like this. I'm going to find out at the end if the translators are happy with me or not. The other standardized test we use is MAP, Measures of Academic Progress. It's diagnostic and it's online. Kids do it on computers, so they enjoy it. My opinion is that this is great for showing individual growth in children. This is great for your whole school data. It shows me patterns across our curriculum, where we have strengths and where we have weaknesses. I think I want to finish off just with these final 2 areas. You're going to need to decide how you're going to fill your program. Is the idea of your program that it grows as your children graduate from upper elementary? That was the decision we made. We only expected 30 to 50% of our current elementary graduates to go into our program. The minute you say that, parents want it. The minute you say you might not be able to have this, they want it. So we were very clear from the beginning that enrollment in our middle school would involve a commitment. It would involve a commitment from our parents to what we wanted to do, what we felt was the right thing to do. It would involve a commitment from the students as well. And we have not been afraid of recommending alternative pathways to our graduates, not into our middle school program. You're all going to ask why it hasn't started, I'm sure. We currently have a very, very difficult issue with the EDB in Hong Kong in regards to the way our program is licensed. That problem is compounded by our building, the Stanley building, is registered as an elementary school only. We intended to start in September this year, and we couldn't. But we will. We will. We planned to be a niche program. We planned for it only to be a 2-year program. We felt that that fits very well with the opportunities or the pathways in Hong Kong for our students. Many students in Hong Kong will go to boarding school in the US or in England, the UK, after our 2 years in middle school. Our 2-year program would lead into the beginning of the IGCSE if our children go to one of our British schools in Hong Kong. And our schools that run the MYP IB could not be happier because they can see the work we are doing to produce the type of learners that are going to be successful in IB programs. So there were no issues with us feeding into the MYP. I want to finish on a high note because while our program is not running, it's had a huge impact on our upper elementary. Last year we took a group of students from upper elementary to MMUN. They went to Rome. For us as a school, that was like a coming of age. We had not sent students overseas before. It was extremely successful, and if any of you don't know what MMUN is, I highly recommend that you get involved. I have a funny, do I have to finish? I'll finish with a funny story. So hopefully it translates okay, it should. We have 2 teachers in every classroom, a Chinese speaking teacher and a Montessori trained English speaking teacher. Some years I move teachers around. We create new pairs, we open new classes, and teachers leave. This year I took one of my longest serving Chinese teachers, Mr. Eddie, and I moved him from his current class into a new class. You might be aware of the problems Hong Kong is facing at the moment. The catch cry of the protests in Hong Kong is not to China, not to death. Chinese characters, not to death, not to China. This group of students presented me with a petition, and it was all in Chinese. It was in characters. I had banners. Mr. Eddie, not to death. Wu Lao Shi, not to death. So they had taken something that they had seen in the community, something that was impacting their lives, a catchphrase, not to China. They had applied it to an issue that was very real to them. They did not want me to move this teacher. Now, if that isn't what we want from our children, if that isn't what our goal is for children to be critical thinkers, lifelong learners, to be knowledgeable enough to form an opinion, to decide that they want something to change, and to be confident in themselves. If that's not what we're trying to do, then I think you're on the wrong track. So whether your program starts next year, whether your program starts the year after, whether your program's been running for 20 years, I think if we keep this goal that Maria Montessori wanted to produce children that would love each other and would love their world enough to be passionate about it, to want to make a difference, then I think you'll be on the right track. Thank you. I think we're going to do some questions now. Should we go and have a look at the questions that you've put up? Are there any questions? So while we're playing around with my toy, are there any questions?
香港的初中，它是一个英文老师，一个中文老师。那在台湾的状况，我们的初中也应该放一个英文老师整天吗？还是说维持我们一个礼拜有几次的专任课的课程？谢谢。
Our approach, my answer to that is you need the dual language environment. If you want truly bilingual children, our opinion is that the dual language environment is the best way to achieve that. In elementary, our students have 2 teachers in the classroom, one speaking Chinese, one speaking English. Both teachers will give presentations, or follow-up presentations. But our elementary students also do 45-minute small group Chinese language lesson every day. And those are streamed. So my simple answer to your question is, I would recommend it if you can do it. Our approach to the middle school was going to be a small team of teachers, one of whom was Mandarin speaking, and we would have increased that as the numbers grow. Okay?
好，今天非常高兴可以听到您的报告。那我这边有第2个问题，我想就是问一下，说在你现在的香港的你所在的那个校区，不知道有没有就是香港籍的学生或者是中国籍的学生的比例大概是多少？就是华人学生的比例大概有多少？那我想知道说，因为有一些深圳很多有一些双非的子女，他们是每天入境到香港去上学的学生也非常的多。那有没有这样子的学生在你的学校里面？那他们的整个学习的效果会不会跟其他的外籍学生效果有一些不一样的地方？
Our location means that we do not experience a significant amount of mainland Chinese coming from Shenzhen. For a student living in Kowloon to get to our Stanley campus, they'll be on a bus for about an hour. So Shenzhen is not an option. But I think, if I can take some liberties here, I think what is underlying the question is how do children from a traditional education system join our school, how do they adapt? It's a very common question that parents will ask. And the basic answer is that they will do very, very well, but it will take time. The longer a child has been in the Montessori program, the more their ability to be independent, their ability to handle freedom through responsibility, the more likely they are to have those attributes. That would be my answer. We do not have many students from mainland China. We are a very multicultural school, over 42 nationalities, and even our Chinese students will often hold passports from other countries. We do have some mainland Chinese students, but not very many. I think this is a universal question or challenge that all Montessori schools grapple with. And I don't think the answer is simple, because even in the 6 years or 7 years that I've been at my school, our approach has changed. And it can change based on your need. So when we opened our Stanley campus, the large campus that you've seen, we had a commitment to the government that we would enroll a certain amount of students by a certain date. So at that time, we had to accept transfers or enrollments from a lot more areas and a lot more places. We had to be more open with our enrollment process. We're in a very lucky position now that we've done a lot of work with our community so that our children will start in our toddler or our Casa Bambini program and go all the way through. To give you an indication of that, I have about 130 lower elementary 1 places every year. So that is grade 1 or year 2, first year of lower elementary. 80 to 90 of those places are taken by our Casa Bambini students. So it does only leave about 30 to 40 places for children to transfer at that point from other schools. New people to come to Hong Kong. We do find that Hong Kong is quite transient. So we do have children leaving and coming to us all the way through. But I haven't answered your question. I think your question was how do you prepare those children? I don't think that we do anything specific to prepare them. Our enrollment procedures are more about making sure that the family understands what we do and why we do it. We're very clear with parents that we're not academically selective. And we're not saying to parents that because your child has a certain learning need, that we're not the right school for you. It's far more about the parents than it is about the students. Hope that helps.
谢谢校长哈，能在一个上午让我们了解，在香港的特殊力的那个整个中学的办学路啊，非常非常的感谢。那我这边有2个问题想请教，就第一个问题，在香港办理这样子的蒙特梭利的学校，要多久的时间？那他需不需要跟政府申请什么样的手续？ 啊，或是什么样的一个计划啊？这是第一个问题。那第二个问题就是，如果这个老师到学校来，他如果发现他不适应，或者是被家长有一些投诉的话，那校长您都怎么样去辅导他，做怎么样的后续的专业成长？ 好，非常感谢2个问题就这样，谢谢。
Thank you. Your first question is easy to answer. How long's a piece of string? Does Hong Kong have lots of red tape? Yes. I'm sure China does. I'm sure Taiwan does. I think if you are a school administrator, if you're a school leader, that's our reality. I can't give you a time frame for how long it would take to set up. We are still going, and this is our 3rd year of us trying to get our middle school up and running. If my founders were here, Anne Sawyer or Karen Ann, they would be very happy, I think, to help you with that particular aspect, and perhaps I can put you in touch. Your second question is about your teacher review, observation, and accountability process, I guess. If you get a complaint about a teacher, I think your first job is to help the parent be very clear about what the complaint is. My next job would be to talk to my curriculum director about her observations. We're a large school, so we have some middle-level leaders as well. I have my curriculum director, and I have 2, we call them leading teachers, but they also help us with observations. I would have to establish a picture of whether the complaint is valid or not. I would say that 80 to 90% of complaints about teachers are driven by parent anxiety, or they're driven by something very, very fundamental, which is a relationship. And so communication goes hand in hand with a relationship. If, for example, I felt that the teacher's practice was good, the classroom practice was good, and perhaps they were struggling with the relationship, then that teacher needs to be coached. We give our teachers some pretty explicit guidelines that we hope develops good communication with parents. But I think what I want to say is that classroom practice is the easiest to coach and change. Relationship building is not always easy to change. So some teachers just don't have that. So that can go back to your recruitment, recruiting the right people. And that can go back to, are you strong enough as an organisation to be able to allow people to cut people from your organisation if you need to. We run a contract-based system for our teachers. Our teachers are reviewed annually. I don't have to offer a teacher a renewal of a contract. There's a lot of things about running a school in Hong Kong that are much easier than running a school in Australia. So it comes down to your recruitment. Good recruitment practices, get the right people in place. Have a good review and observation process in place that allows teachers to receive effective feedback. Effective feedback about what they're doing. And that's not, Pippa, I really loved it when I walked into the room and I saw that you had kids clean the plants. Effective feedback for teachers is specific, explicit, and focuses on their weaknesses and their strengths. So sometimes you have to be very kind and respectful about the way you work with teachers and coach them.